Hello students, welcome to Vajirao and Reddy Institute online platform. I am Gogula Rajashekar, faculty at Vajirao and Reddy. In this session, we are going to discuss approach to answer writing. Now, in this session, what we are going to look at is what are the different components of answer writing and what is the significance of answer writing in mains examination and how can we present the answers, various directive words, the tail words, how can we change the structure of the answer depending upon the directive word that has been fixed at the end of the question. Apart from that, we will also look at various elements of presentation in the answer writing. Now, without delaying, let us understand this approach to answer writing. See, when it comes to UPSC examination, see, it is all about writing. Why I am saying this? See, the examination is for, the merit marks are for 20-25 marks, out of which we have 1750 marks in the mains examination. Major chunk of it goes in the mains examination. If you perform very well in the mains examination, there is a great chance that you will achieve your goal. That's the reason why I often say every answer is an emotion that the candidate that you need to convey to the examiner. Because in UPSC examination, your knowledge, your abilities, your management skills, everything is checked through your answers. You are not physically present in front of the examiner to explain the level of knowledge that you have. Rather, your answer should do that. That's the reason why answer writing becomes very crucial in this examination. And each question in UPSC examination comes with some directive words. For example, analyze, comment, elucidate, elaborate, and critically analyze, critically comment. Such tail words will be added to the statements or questions, where you need to analyze and give the balanced answers in some of the questions. So during this journey, we will also understand such a tail words, and when such a tail word is asked, how our answer should be presented, what should be the language of the answer. See, the content is going to be same, but the presentation is going to vary. That's what we will understand here. Plus, each question you have some restrictions. See, some of these restrictions will be explicit, where you can see it, you can actually see those restrictions. What are the restrictions that you get? Number one, the time restriction. Number two, the word limit. See, for each and every question, there are word limits. In UPSC mains, main words are like the questions, the variety of the questions that have been so far asked are 150 words, 200 words. Earlier there used to be 200 words questions as well, then 250 words questions. And the marks allotted for them are 10 markers, 12.5 marks. These type of questions now they are not asking, and 15 marks questions. So now there is a word limit. Then there is the hidden component, that is time limit. See, entire paper you have to write it in 3 hours. That means in GS paper specifically, leaving your ethics paper, each of GS 1, 2, 3 will be having 20 questions, out of which 10 questions will be 10 markers and 10 questions will be 15 markers. So there is a limitation with respect to the time that you are spending on writing those questions. Then apart from that, there is also one implicit restriction. Now before going into this implicit restriction, let's see one more explicit restriction, that is number of pages. For a question of 150 words, 10 markers, you have 2 pages. The space is already predetermined. You have to write your answer within that space. Then for 250 and 200 words, you have 3 pages. Within that, you have to write your answer. So there is a space constraint as well. time, word limit and space constraint. So what does all these elements will indicate to the examiner and to the UPSC board? We will see it later in a moment. Now what is the implicit one which we don't see it? That is with respect to restriction on the content. The content that we write, say each and every question will be having some content. Now the content that we write also has some restriction based on these explicit restrictions. You can't keep on giving whatever the content you know related to a question. That implicit restriction, you need to find it. How do you find it? By going thoroughly with the question, reading the question again and again, knowing what is the demand of the question. So that's where this implicit restriction plays very important role. Those who understand it and write their answers according to the demand of the question, they perform well, they get good marks. Now with this, let us enter into another element of this answer writing, that is decoding various components of the answer. Like in the UPSC Mains examination, what are the skills of the aspirants which are checked? First and foremost, number one, understanding ability. Your ability to understand, comprehend what is being asked in the question. So this is where we will be linking it with the demand of the question. Demand of question. I'll deal with it separately later after explaining all the elements. Then comes drafting or your structuring of the answer component. Whether do you have good ability to structure your answer. We'll see what are the various components in the structure of an answer later. Then comes the content or the knowledge component that you have. Given a particular aspect of the question or particular subject, how much knowledge you have on that. What are the various dimensions that you can interlink, that will be checked through your answers. So these are all various skills that are checked through the answers. Then one more component is, do you have good grip over the contemporary events which are affecting India and India's interest, both national and international events, and how good you understand them, plus how good you interlink them. This is where we will be interlinking the dynamic content of the current affairs with the static content that you find it in GS paper 1, 2, 3, 4 with the syllabus of UPSC. We will also elaborate on this, how to improve upon this. Then finally, see, after checking off your understanding skills, writing skills, knowledge information, and then the updates that you have with respect to the current events, then final component is your presentation. How better you present the content that you have. So all these 5 parameters and one more parameter that will be checked, that is your language component. So UPSC examination can be given in many languages, English, Hindi and many other vernacular languages. So here, do you have good grip over the language? You don't have to go with the complex language or very flowery language. All you need to do is present it in a simpler form, which is understandable even to a layman who does not know about that particular concept or particular topic. If that person reads your answer, should be able to understand it. So such a simple language, simple lucid language, whether you have, and do you make any grammatical mistakes? These are all will be checked at this level. So these are all the 6 skills that will be checked through your answer writing. Now what we do is, we will take up one by one, beginning with understanding skill. Here through UPSC examination, your ability to understand a particular concept or an event or a subject will be tested. So for this, how should we approach? See, for example, here I have taken one question from the recent 2022 mains. 2023 mains is about to happen. So I have taken the latest one. The question is, look at the question, I'll read it for you. Elucidate. Now here, if you see, I told you there are some directive words or tail words. Here there is a prefix word. The word is elucidate. Elucidate the relationship between globalization and new technology in a world of scarce resources, comma, with a special reference to India. This is the question. So if you show this question to some aspirant or somebody who does not have sound knowledge of all this globalization, what are these scarce resources and how can we interlink with reference to India, they may not be able to even understand what is the demand of the question. But if you decode it, say tail word is elucidate, that you mean you have to elaborate on this link or the relationship. Plus, what are the important components of this question? Globalization. So you need to have knowledge about globalization, various aspects of it. Then new and emerging technologies, new technology in the world of scarce resources. Already because of growing populations, there is stress on the natural resources. There is a scarcity on many natural resources. And this has further aggraved because of the pollutions and commercial exploitations. So there is a scarcity. Now look at the question. Elucidate the relationship between what and what? Between globalization and new technologies in a world of scarce resources. Now you can look at the relationship on the positive side as well as the negative impacts. What kind of relationship? On one side you can have like globalization, with the integration of one country with other parts of the globe, you can have access to better technologies, emerging technologies, which can help you to exploit some of the resources which are not being tapped so far. Plus at the same time, some of the scarce resources can be better managed. Resource mobilization can be optimal with the globalization. Positive point. At the same time, there are negative points as well. With increasing globalization, with increasing competition, with increasing international trade and competition, there is more and more commercialization and exploitation. As a result, this further pushes that scarce resources toward even further scarce areas. So look at the other side of it. So we need to balance this relationship and bring it out. Plus, it has been particularly with reference to India, so this is where we can take the examples and explain the same. So that is the demand of it. So the demand of the question, or understanding the demand of the question, it shows whether you have accurately comprehended or understood what is being asked in the question, and did you write according to the demand. This will be tested. Later I will say how to understand this question towards the end of this session. Then comes the next aspect of it. What is the next aspect that we are focusing on? That is structurizing your answer. See, each and every answer has three main components. In fact, even an essay or any piece of writing that we do, it has three components. What are those? Introduction and the body and conclusion. So introduction is what? How you begin, how you introduce a particular topic. For example, earlier topic we were talking about globalization. You can simply define globalization and say the impact of it or interrelationship of it in the beginning itself, in the first paragraph itself. Then comes the body of the answer. So body is the main area where you justify or where you provide answer to the demand of the question. See, this is where you brief or you hook the examiner through the definition or through the data or through various other examples what is being asked. You will be briefing it and you will be hooking the examiner. Examiner should develop the interest to further read your answer with the introduction itself. Then in the body you will present most of the demand of the question, the content part. Then comes the conclusion, which takes care of whatever that you have put in the body from the introduction, on the basis of it, you will optimistically, always please remember in UPSC answers, the conclusion should always be optimistic. Even if there is a negative sense statement, sometimes the questions will be having negative sense statements, that should also be concluded with a optimistic approach. So we want optimistic bureaucrats. Even when there is no hope, still they will be having a ray of hope for further development. Such sort of managers we need, such sort of diplomats, bureaucrats we need. That's where your conclusion should always be optimistic and it should be balanced. Even if you do the criticism, that criticism must be balanced, a constructive criticism, so that you are not oriented. In your conclusions, the civil services values that we study in ethics paper and we follow in our real life must be shown with the conclusions. The neutrality aspects and non-partisanship aspect, unbiasedness, and the spirit of civil services, all of them can be shown through your conclusions, the inherent qualities that you have. That's how we should conclude. Now, coming to this structure, ideally there is a question. Out of how many words we can divide each of it for introduction, body and conclusion? Meaning, let's say my answer should be written in 150 words. How should I devote my words to, let's say, introduction, to the body, to the conclusion? Answer is very simple. Always keep 10 to 20% of the words for introduction. For example, in this case, if it is 150 words, your introduction should be within 15 to 25 words, or even 30 words is also fine. That means it should be lucid, short, and it should be in 3 to 4 lines or maximum 5 lines. It should not go beyond it. See, this is only for GS answers. Essay it will change. Essay you can have bigger introductions as well, because there the word limit increases up to 1200 as well. Then similar thing goes for the conclusion as well. In conclusion also you can conclude it with a word limit of 10 to 20% of the words. Then comes your body. Body being the main focus of it, the percentage of the words that are allocated generally are 60 to 70% of the words must be allocated to your body, where you provide actual content according to the demand of the question. This is how you should divide. And conclusion should also be very crisp, very solid, and it should be clear cut. Right? You can be diplomatic, but there should not be any ambiguity in your conclusions. This is how we should approach towards this structurizing. Towards the end, I will tell you how to practice this structurizing. Then the next component, that is content. See, in examination in UPSC Mains, content is the king. If you have good content which is satisfying the demand of the answer, you will get marks. But if the demand is not justified, but still you are filling the pages with lot of content, associated or irrelevant content, you won't get marks. Right? So here the content, that is the information block, how do you get it? Through your preparation, like when you are going with your classes, your additional readings, materials, newspapers, all of them will give you some information. You compile it, you put it under relevant sections of the syllabus, try to integrate it, interrelate it. Now here, how do we begin? Like you can gather some definitions, standard definitions given by some international organizations, some bodies, constitutional, non-constitutional bodies, some of the voluntary organizations. You can gather them as per the syllabus of UPSC. For each topic you can gather those definitions. Then some of the facts and statistics, these also you can get it from the standard books as well as from newspapers. Whenever you see a particular relevant stat or a fact, try to collect it and keep it in a separate notebook so that you can present it in the answer writing. Then comes examples. This is another crucial area because most of the content is almost similar because we refer to the same books, we'll be getting the same sources, and even the concepts are also going to be same. The understanding of it and giving the examples is going to make your answers novel. So when you compare it with some other aspirant, your answer should be unique. See, I remember one quote, like it's not a quote, it is a saying by some student. He said, to be number one, you need to be odd. O-D-D, odd. So obviously number one is an odd number, that is also matching it. So to be good, to get extra marks, to be awarded, you need to be odd and novel. Your content should be unique. So where do we get that uniqueness? Through these examples. How do you get good examples? By understanding the concepts. So again, it goes back to understanding of the basic concepts. Then comes some of the case studies, success stories, anecdotes, quotations. These are all can be gathered and put. Then comes, see, it changes according to the directive word or tail word. As I told you, the structuring of the content, the presentation of the content changes as per the tail word that has been put. For example, sometimes it is comment, like passing a comment. Your answer structure should look like you are passing a comment on particular aspect. Analysis, examination, they have to be professional. So you have to go deep and take all the pros and cons or arguments in favor or against, then compile it and put it. So this is how the content portion changes according to the directive word given in the question. Now to sum up, how can we enrich our content? Number one, additional reading. Number two, brainstorming. You sit with your friends, fellow aspirants, do the discussions, group discussions, or simply brainstorm different topics from different papers of GS, and then try to integrate, interrelate, gather the examples, try to put them and link them. That is how you can enrich your content. And this plays very important role. Without content, even if you fill all 2 pages or 3 pages, you are not going to get good marks. It has to be with the demand of the question. Now comes another element at answer writing, that is contemporary events. See, this aspect checks your touch with the current happenings, the important events like in the national as well as in the international arena, particularly which are affecting the interests of India. This is the keyword here. So you are not interested in any other events which impacts or which are affecting the India's interests or directly India. Those are the events which we need to focus. Sometimes people get confused what to read in the newspaper. Simply follow your syllabus. Look at the syllabus, remember the sections of the syllabus, that will guide you what to be covered in the newspaper, simple, or in the current affairs. So with this, what is being tested? Your ability to interlink the topics, current happenings with the static portion that you have in the syllabus, so that you can put different current happenings and update that content. Next, the citing of the good examples. This will help in making your content novel again. Some of the examples you can gather from current affairs. Then comes the data. Like sometimes you need to justify a particular trend by citing some data or statistics. This is where we refer to various sources such as economic survey or some reports. They are released by either Niti Aayog or different ministries or various international organizations and fora. And we take the data from there and appropriately we will be citing them. Apart from that, some of the judgments given by high courts and supreme courts, particularly in the polity paper, Indian polity. Similarly, some of the reports, these are all some that we can gather, and of course it goes wide as per your syllabus of UPSC, and gathering of this content and finally interlinking it with the static portion. That is the requirement for this particular aspect. Then comes one more, that is presentation. So far, whatever that you have understood, starting from understanding the demand, then structurizing the answer, then putting the content, both static as well as the dynamic content, all of it must be presented in a smooth manner. Just think of it like you are a cook, you have the ingredients, you cooked a recipe. The answer is your recipe. Now on top of it, now you are garnishing it to look it better, to make it more appealing. That's what the presentation does here. So in case of the presentation, what we do is the final embellishments. So with the practice, we can present the same content in a very attractive manner, very simple manner, which is appealing to the examiner. The examiner should not put efforts to understand what you have written in the content. He or she able to understand it through very simply by going through your answer. That can only happen when your presentation is good. So under this, what we can use of paragraphs. You can define, conclude in paragraphs, or put some data, or write some points in the paragraphs in the body. You can also use pointers or bulletins like number 1, 2, 3, so on so. Or you can use Roman letters or ABC, whatever it is. Then using of the flow charts wherever it is applicable or wherever it is appropriate. Then comes diagrams. See, drawing the diagrams will save your time as well as it will better appeal to the examiner. Like entire content can be easily presented to the examiner. That's where diagrams gets very, very important. Then comes maps, particularly in geography, in international relations, and some of the disputed areas in your, let's say, polity paper. We can use these maps. Even in environment and ecology, you can use the maps to show some of the biodiversity parks, biosphere reserves and national parks, etc. Here in the coming sessions, I will be teaching you how to draw Indian map as well as world map, plus some of these miscellaneous maps that we need to focus on. Then comes graphs. So generally graphs are used for data presentation. You can use line graphs, simple, or you can use, let's say, bar or pie diagrams. Like for example, if I had to say the elements in the crust of the earth, we can show it in the pie, or the composition of land and water, you can show it in the pie. Or for example, if you are talking about power generation and various sources of this power generation in India, you can show it in the pie diagram representing which power is coming from where, coal, let's say wind, solar energy, nuclear energy, etc. That can be shown on pie diagram. So such graphs and presentation. Then finally tables. Tables can be used for presenting the data as well as for differentiations and comparisons. Generally sometimes you will be asked to compare and contrast or differentiate or bring out the differences, such type of questions. There it would be better to present in the tabular form. These are all some of the various elements through which we can present our answers, right? So through this, what we are doing, actually we are making our answer attractive. These are all garnishing elements, embellishments to our answer writing, right? Apart from that, there is another component, that is language component. You don't have to be expert in the language, but your communication with respect to the language must be error free, particularly grammatical errors, plus it should be free of spelling mistakes. That's it. And present it as simple as possible. I have seen some of the answers written by aspirants. They make very complex statements by using different connectors. Entire paragraph of 5-6 lines composes of only one sentence. It should not be so. Break it and write it in simpler sentences. We will learn how to do this as well. So these are all the various elements of answer writing. Now with these elements, after understanding these elements, let us look at what is the actual approach and how to integrate all of these aspects in our answer writing. See, this is for those beginners who are having that kickstart problem, like how to begin the answer writing. And it can also help those who have already begun, but there is a saturation. See, after a time there is a creative saturation, then improving on the marks will be becoming difficult for them. There you can incorporate some of the points and enhance your marks, right? Let us look at them. First and foremost, understanding the demand of the question. So how do we do that? First and foremost, take the question, read it multiple times during the practice time, not in the actual examination, but practice time. It is learning, right? So you can read it multiple times and decode it, break it into parts. Like one question may be having 2-3 components. First, break it into different components. Read it once again, see what is the core demand of the question, what is being highlighted, what is the key word or a tail word that is associated with the question. So first, what should we do? Read it multiple times and segregate it into different divisions or segments. Then once again, looking at those segments, finding what is the demand of the question. So this is the first step. Second, once you understand the demand of the question, you need to structure your answer according to the demand. For that, take a rough paper, make the schematic of your answer. Simply write in introduction what I am going to write. Just make a line, 1 line or 2 lines, what you are going to write it in the introduction. Then body, then conclusion. So you do this on a rough paper. This is a rough schematic of the structure, where you will be marking what you are going to write in the introduction and in the body and in the conclusion as per the demand of the question that you have understood. Make a rough schematic of it. And please remember one thing, I have seen many people writing that introduction, body, conclusion, such as subheadings. You don't have to put these subheadings. They are generally understood from the general structure of your answer. The very first paragraph, it is understood that is an introduction. The next, that is the body, and concluding is the paragraph which is at the end is the conclusion. You don't have to put these subheadings. This is the conclusion also. Instead of it, we can use some other subheadings like way forward. We can also use the you can say the good initiatives so far taken or measures taken, need of the hour. Such kind of subheadings can be put. That we will discuss in the course of this journey. Now going further, once you have structurized the answer, then comes to the content portion. I told you this is the most important and crucial part. So take some time. After understanding the demand and structurizing it, see what is the requirement that you need to write, and take the help of the books or websites or anything, online sources. Take the example of it, collect all the content that you need to write your answer, put it in a separate rough page, read it once again, go through it again and again so that you can recall those points. So now you have done gathering of the content. This is called content gathering. And do the brainstorming. Integrate all GS papers. A particular topic is given or asked in the question. See from which paper that has been asked and see where is the connection that it has with other papers, and try to get all the content. This is what we call it as content gathering. Now once the content gathering is done, you go through it, then comes practicing of it. But before that, you need to add the contemporary elements as well. This is where your current affairs portion is going to come into picture. So try to recall all the events, or at least whatever the events that you remember with respect to the question that has been asked. You also compile them along with your static content in the content gathering portion itself. Try to interlink them. Try to provide them as the examples. So that will be taking care of your entire content. Now you have gathered the content, go through it. But when it comes to the answer writing, you should not directly copy paste it. You should not note it down. Rather than what you should do, after getting this content and gathering it, go through it, then whenever you are writing, close it down and write it as if you are writing in the exam. Try to recall how much portion of the content you can retain and put it on the paper. If you are not able to recall some points, it's okay, no issue. You can recall or you can revise them after writing of the answer. This is how you can improve upon the content. So do that. But here also, what is the last element? That is presentation. How do we improve presentation? Keep on writing it. Take the feedback from the evaluator, again write it, try to put some innovation in the presentation. Be it, like I told in one of the sessions in the other batch, that the difference is some people represent it in the form of table. Like here between two things, यहाँ पर column 1, column 2, then they write 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 in like this manner. And I have also seen some people presenting it in this form of Venn diagram, where they write the similarities here and differences here. This is another type of presentation. So as you practice, some new ideas will come, and based on it you can present it. So taking these points, you can begin your answer writing. That's it for this particular session. In the next session, we will be taking like GS paper 1. I'll take 2 questions from 2 different subjects. I'll discuss along with the model answers, so that you can get some inputs, how to begin and how to approach answer writings. Similarly, we will be going for GS paper 2, GS paper 3, GS paper 4, both theory portion and case studies. Altogether in this series, we will be having 5 videos. One video will be dedicated to this approach, what we have covered. Then remaining 4 videos will be GS paper 1, GS paper 2, GS paper 3 and GS paper 4. In this manner, we are going to cover and see the approach to various type of questions from different topics and subjects with the different approaches. That's it for this particular session. I hope it is useful to you. Thank you very much for watching it and tuning in. See you in the next session with the continuation of the topic and the series. That's it. Thank you very much, guys.